The Love I Lost Part 2 an Iwaoi Omega AU story. A mini-series. Hope you enjoy it. Texts between mean that they are the thoughts of the respective person. Texts between mean that they are talking in English. Texts between mean that they are talking in Spanish. Normal speech bubbles mean that they are talking in Japanese. In my Omega version there are 3 different second genders. First, alphas, they are the rarest and the dominant ones. There are 3 different sorts of alphas. Dominant alpha are the rarest of them all and also the strongest. They have the finest smell and the strongest pheromones. They are able to smell the pheromones of omegas even if they take suppressants during their heat. However, this can only be smelled weakly, whether recessive or dominant. They smell weaker than normal pheromones. Dominant alphas can, if they have an imprinted mate, smell them over a certain distance. Then there are the normal alphas. They are different based on how close they are to dominant or recessive alphas. This means that when they are almost dominant alpha they have stronger pheromones and a better sense of smell. Some are even able to smell the pheromones of an omegas who took suppressants, but this is rare. If they are closer to recessive alphas they have a poorer sense of smell but still have good control over their pheromones. The recessive alphas are the weakest. They have a poorly developed sense of smell. They also have weaker pheromones. Second, there are the betas. They are ordinary. They can't smell pheromones. Betas are the most common. Third, there are omegas, also known as the weakest. There are also 3 different sorts of them. Dominant omegas are the rarest of the omegas. They usually have a strong personality. They have good control over their pheromones. They usually have a stronger heat and therefore need stronger suppressants. The influence of alpha pheromones will not affect them unless they are from a dominant alpha. Normal omegas don't have particularly strong pheromones. They can control them well unless they are in heat or being influenced by an alpha. Recessive omegas tend to have weak pheromones and thus poor control over them as they get stronger. One reason their pheromones can get stronger is when they've found their imprinted mate. They are often mistaken for beta because of the pheromones that can hardly be smelled. An imprint mate is basically a soulmate. They are meant to be together from birth. Anyone who has an imprinted mate finds the pheromones from other omegas or alphas disgusting. Alphas can range variation in their imprinted mate's scent. The more dominant an alpha is, the smaller changes he perceives. The same applies to omegas. A heat is comparable to a woman's period. It comes once a month. Only omegas have a heat. At this time they have a very strong desire for an alpha. And those who have an imprinted mate have a craving for him. A heat can be suppressed with suppressants or by an alpha. If the suppressants are taken too late, the heat can still be bad. Those who have an imprinted mate can only have their sexual desires satisfied by their alpha or by a stronger form of suppressants. During a heat they are more likely to get pregnant. RAT is basically the same as a heat except only alphas have it. They are also treated the same as a heat, with either suppressants or an omega. Their desire for sex is huge at this time. During a RAT, they are more likely to impregnate the omega. There are also suppressants for alphas. Also alphas with imprinted mate need their omega or stronger suppressants. Scent is the individual smell of an omega or of an alpha. Omegas can get pregnant whether they are male or female. Recessive omegas have trouble getting pregnant. Alpha females can also get pregnant. Betas, only the female can get pregnant. Toru woke up drenched in sweat. His whole body felt hot. His butt was particularly hot. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He had never experienced such warmth. He didn't even have the strength to crawl out of his bed. When his mother walked into his room, she saw exactly what he had. She knew right away that her son had presented as an Omega. She got him suppressants right away. She called the school to let them know that he wouldn't be able to go to school for a few days. I want my Iwaichan. I need him with me. Toru, my darling, that's not possible. You know he's an alpha and he couldn't hold back when he smelled your scent. But I need my alpha. I want my alpha. Toru, that's the heat that speaks out of you. When your heat is over you will regret it. Take a rest, I'll check on you later. No, I love him. Toru had a great desire for his best friend. He wanted to be touched by the alpha. He wanted to smell the alpha and feel his presence. Toru always felt a special bond with his best friend. He's wanted more than just being Iwaichan's best friend for a while. He realized his feelings for the spiker a year ago. Iwaichan has always been reserved about Omegas. He never wanted anything to do with Omegas. Because of this, Toru always hid that he thought he would present as an Omega. The only one who knew that Toru thought he was probably an Omega was Hanamaki. If he had presented as an Alpha, he would have had no chance with Iwaichan. But he's an Omega. Did that mean he had a chance with his best friend? Or does that mean the Alpha didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore? Hey Toru, how are you? Your mother gave me your suppressants. You should take them to make you feel better. Maki, where is Iwaichan? I need him. Toru, you're in heat. You shouldn't have an alpha around you. I told him not to come. But I want my alpha. Hanamaki took out a sweater from his backpack that belonged to Iwaisumi. He gave it to Toru, who snuggled up to the sweater. He inhaled the smell that was on the sweater. When the suppressants took effect and Toru was able to think clearly again, he sat up. He looked over at his friend and tears slowly ran down his cheeks. He will hate me? You know that's not true. Otherwise you wouldn't be his best friend if he hated you for something like that. You don't understand. He hates Omegas. Why do you think he's never been with anyone? He thinks Omegas smell too sweet and are too dependent on alphas. And now I'm one of them? I get aroused only by the smell that was still on his sweater. I know you're scared, but he will remain your best friend. He will understand and maybe he will reciprocate your feelings? Or he's even more disgusted with me? You'll see when you get back to school that it won't change anything about your relationship. Toru's heat was still bad for 3 days. Saturday and Sunday it wasn't that bad, but he didn't go out because he couldn't control his pheromones yet. He quickly learned to control his pheromones. When he went to school on Monday he was still taking suppressants to stabilize them. When he saw Iwaichan, he got scared and avoided him. Sitting behind him in class and smelling his pheromones, he knew his heat wasn't quite over yet. His best friend's pheromones were driving him insane. He took another suppressant after lunch so he could get through the day without incident. He avoided getting too close to the dominant alpha, realizing that the suppressants near him weren't having the full effect. Why are you ignoring Iwaisumi? I do not do that. Who are you trying to kid here? I'm not blind, Kawa. I'm an Omega? I can't face him like that. He won't hate you for being an Omega. While it's surprising to me and probably him that you're an Omega and not an Alpha, that doesn't mean we like you any less. Talk to him after practice. He deserves to know why you're avoiding him. Believe in him that he won't turn away from you just because you're an Omega. You're right. I'll talk to him. The training didn't go well. Toru couldn't concentrate well. He had hotter than usual. He was very distracted by his best friend's pheromones. He wanted to take Iwaichan in his arms and do things with him. After a successful set and a good spike from his best friend, he wanted to high-five with him. But the alpha backed away, covering his nose. Iwaisumi looked troubled. The alpha was shaking all over. Toru tried to grab him to help, but Iwa-chan backed away and looked at him in disgust. Iwa-chan, what's wrong? You're trembling. Stay away. You're an Omega? The words tore a hole in Toru's heart. His biggest fear became real. His best friend was disgusted that he was an Omega. The fuck? Why, yes. I am sorry. Toru looked at his best friend while tears slowly ran down his cheeks. He looked at Iwaisumi's face and saw his teeth clench. Toru turned and ran away. Toru didn't know where he was going. He just knew that he had to go. He only stopped when he came to a place he knew only too well. It was the place where he had met Iwa-chan. There, where the two friends had played together a lot in their childhood. Why can't you love me, Iwa-chan? Is it because I'm an Omega? Or is it me? Toru sat on a bench and cried into his knees. He didn't care that people gave him strange looks. Toru, there you are? Why are you so fast? What are you doing here? And how did you find me? I ran after you when you ran out of the gym. I lost you at the beginning of this park. Hanamaki sat down next to Toru and hugged him. The two didn't speak for a long time. Hanamaki just comforted his friend while Toru cried in his arms. As it slowly got dark, Hanamaki brought Toru home. You know, he didn't mean it like that. No, he did mean it like that. He hates me now because I'm an Omega. It was friends with me because he thought that I'm going to be an alpha as well. And now that I'm turned out to be an Omega, he hates me. You know that is not true. He's just confused at the moment. I don't want to talk about it now. I need sleep. Good night, Maki. Toru opened the door and closed it behind him. Iwaisumi didn't come to school for 2 days. Toru was worried and wanted to check on the spiker, but he was too scared of what his best friend would tell him. When Iwaisumi came back to school, Toru noticed that he wanted to talk to him. Toru, however, who wasn't ready to listen yet, avoided the spiker. Toru avoided being alone with the alpha. He always made sure that Maki or Matsu was with him when he needed to talk to him. While speaking to Iwa-chan, he always avoided the subject of being an Omega and the incident during training. Every time Toru was close to the ace, he was very scared. Not of the alpha, but rather of losing their friendship. And before his own thoughts, he always wanted to be in the alpha's arms and have Iwa-chan mark him as his. The strong pheromones Iwa-chan gave off in his presence also frightened him. Nobody in his school gave off strong and attractive pheromones like he did. After a few days, he noticed that no one in the school was able to smell Iwa-chan's pheromones at all times. When Toru asked some of the other Omegas at school, he learned that the other Omegas were only able to smell Iwaisumi's pheromones when he wanted to. It seemed like only Toru was able to smell Iwa-chan's pheromones at all times. Why am I the only one who can smell him all the time? Why can't I stop thinking about him? When Iwa-chan stopped training, he realized that he wasn't protecting his friendship with Iwaisumi if he stopped talking to him. When he finally wanted to talk to his best friend, it was too late. The alpha avoided the Omega completely. He even asked for a different seat in the class. 2 weeks Toru avoided the alpha, and after 2 more weeks the Omega tried to forget the alpha. He went to a friend's party from school. Not the best decision considering he was in the middle of his heat. While the suppressants alleviated all of his symptoms, he still had a great desire to sleep with his alpha. Hey sweetie, are you here on your own? Ew. He smells far too arrogant. But maybe he can help me forget about Iwa-chan. Hey handsome. Yes, I'm alone here. Your scent is incredible. After a while, as they talked, the alpha leaned forward and kissed the Omega. Toru didn't want the kiss, he wanted Iwa-chan to kiss him, but he knew that would never happen. That's why he allowed the kiss. He imagined himself making out with Iwa-chan. While kissing, he tried to find the smell of Iwaisumi. With success. He smelled his best friend, which turned him on. The alpha he kissed, on the other hand, took it the wrong way and slid his hand under Toru's shirt. The alpha thought Toru was excited because of him. Until the moment he was pulled away by a strong alpha. "You're a dominant alpha?" The pheromones Iwa-chan gave off made Toru tremble. "Yes. I am, and now piss off." "Sorry dude, he didn't say he already has an alpha?" Iwa-chan growled at the other alpha, who fled intimidated. Then he looked over at the setter. Immediately afterwards, Toru could smell something that quickly calmed him down. Iwa-chan, on the other hand, looked very angry. The setter couldn't quite understand why he was so angry. Iwaisumi walked up to Toru and grabbed him. Toru landed on Iwa-chan's shoulder in one quick movement. The alpha carried the Omega all the way to Toru's house. While Toru was hanging on Iwaisumi's shoulder and smelling the pheromones better than ever before, he realized how ineffective the suppressants actually were. Iwa-chan's scent was incredibly arousing for the Omega. Why are my suppressants useless? And what is that feeling? Like all I ever needed is by my side? Could it be that Iwa-chan is my imprinted mate? Nah, not possible. He would have said something. Right? Toru only noticed that he was standing in his room, when the alpha dropped him off. It made the Omega happy to see his best friend in his room again. But seeing how he struggled to be near him, hurt the Omega. He wanted nothing more than to be in the arms of the alpha, but Iwa-chan couldn't even be in the same room without covering his nose and keeping his distance. What the hell were you thinking? Going to a party full of alphas while you are in heat? Are you stupid? You should know how dangerous that can be. You should know that the alcohol can affect your suppressants. I just wanted to feel normal again. Is that so bad? And I didn't drink because of my suppressants. Everyone treats me differently. Since I presented as an Omega, no one treats me the same, not even you. Can't you just treat me like you did when you thought I was an alpha? Toru took a step towards the alpha, who took a step back and put his hand over his nose again. See, that's what I mean. You always keep your distance. I can't get near you without you stepping back. You were the one who kept distance first. You always avoided me, that's why I distanced myself from you. I was just afraid that you would hate me. But every time I tried to talk to you, you always kept your distance. Do I disgust you so much for being an Omega? Toru's desire to throw himself into the arms of an alpha grew bigger and bigger. He wanted to touch him, he wanted to smell him. I always keep my distance to protect you. Do you know how you smell? Do I smell so good for him? Whenever I smell you, I want to touch you. I want you. You don't know what I want to do with you when I smell you. Do you know how much self-control it takes me to just stand in front of you? As Iwaisumi spoke, Toru took slow steps toward the alpha. With every step he made, the other took a step back. Until he couldn't go any further. Toru could see Iwa-chan's inner struggle, but he wanted at least one night with his best friend. Even if it's just because of his pheromones. Kawa, please? Keep your distance before I lose control. I don't want to hurt you, but you're hurting me already. You supposed to be my best friend. Is it such a bad thing that I'm an Omega? Toru saw those words hit a sore spot in the alpha. Is he more important to his best friend than he thought? Did he have a chance of getting together with the alpha after all? When the alpha squeezed his arm over his nose and looked away, it brought tears to Toru's eyes. Are you that disgusted? Then I am an Omega and not an alpha? But you know, It is not my fault that I'm an Omega. Toru burst into tears. He was very hurt that his best friend was so disgusted that he was an Omega. The sadness and pain made him forget that he had to control his pheromones. He unconsciously released a large amount of pheromones. Iwaisumi grabbed the Omega and pulled him into a kiss. Toru was picked up by Iwaichan and he wrapped his legs around his waist. He wrapped his arms around Iwaisumi's neck. He was laid gently on the bed. He deepened the kiss and enjoyed every second in which he could be so close to the alpha. Go to my Insta for the smut. The most important thing that happened is that Iwaisumi marked Toru. Marking is when an alpha marks an omega as his own. Other alphas are no longer able to smell the omega's pheromones, also known as a bond mark. When Toru woke up he was alone. Iwaisumi was gone. When Toru wanted to get up, he fell to the ground. His legs, back and butt hurt extremely. He remembered well of what happened that night. And not having Iwaisumi by his side when he woke up left a scar on Toru's heart. During the night he thought Iwaichan would reciprocate his feelings, but he was apparently wrong. When he wanted to talk to him at school on Monday, Iwaichan avoided him. Whenever he walked towards him, the alpha would look away guiltily before walking away. Toru's hopes that his best friend would also love him were getting smaller and smaller. So you regret that you marked me? Toru gave up after 3 weeks and left the alpha alone. When Iwaichan finally approached Toru, it was already too late. The wounds in Toru's heart were too great. He couldn't have Iwaisumi around anymore. When he received an offer from an Argentinian team he had applied to, he decided to leave the country after graduating. He said goodbye to all his friends on the day of graduation. Everyone except his best friend. He asked his friends not to tell Iwaichan where he was, as he had to get over his best friend before he could see him again. Farewell my home. I hope you will be happy. Iwaichan? These were his last words to his home before he turned and boarded the plane. The nausea, the constant tiredness, the tightness in your chest and the lack of heat suggest that you are pregnant, Mr. Oikawa. We will arrange a test and then we will know for sure. No, this cannot be. I can't be pregnant. Toru has already been in Argentina for 2 months. At first he thought he didn't feel well because he was homesick and because of the different environment, but after 2 months he decided to see a doctor. After he had the result, he went home where his roommate was already waiting for him. When Toru opened the door, he immediately threw himself into the alpha's arms, crying. Mateo Diaz is an American of Argentine descent. He is an athletic trainer on the team Toru played for. Since Mateo still had difficulties with Spanish, the two decided to speak English with each other. Hey Toru, what did the doctor say? How bad is it? I am pregnant. I'm not allowed to play anymore. Not at least 6 months after the baby is born. Toru, everything will be fine? Do you know who the father is? Yes. I told you about Iwaichan? The two broke the hug. Mateo looked down at Toru and touched his neck where his mark was. He's the one who left you that, right? Your best friend? Yes, he is the father. We are no longer friends. He hates that I'm an Omega and not an Alpha like I should have been. Don't worry, Toru. I will be there for you. I will help you with the child. Thank you, Teo. I don't know what I would do without you. Mateo pulled Toru into his arms. He accompanied Toru to every examination. Toru didn't want anyone at home to know he was pregnant, so he broke off all contact. Only his family knew about the pregnancy. 4 months later a beautiful child was born. Mateo became the child's godfather. The Omega missed its Alpha every day. He wanted to fly home often and tell him about his son Hagio Iwaikawa. But he was too afraid of being rejected, and that Iwaisumi wanted nothing to do with his child. Time skip 4 years later. 4 years later, his son said something that finally gave him the courage to meet Iwaisumi again. Papa, I want to meet my dad. My darling, you have me and Teo, isn't that enough? But I want to know the one you love. I want to know who my father is. Well, I'll take you to the World Championships and you'll be able to meet him there. From then on, Toru was very nervous. He didn't know how Iwa-chan would react to the news that he had a child. He already regretted then that he had marked him, so how would he react to a child? After a few months, the time had finally come. He was at the stage where the World Championships will take place in 1 week. His team, the Japanese team, and a few others flew in earlier to adapt to the environment. Toru's heart stopped for a second when he saw his best friends back. He would recognize the broad back anywhere, and especially those pheromones. Iwa-chan? Toru looked at his best friend, who slowly turned around. His son clung to his leg. He put a calming hand on his head and stroked it lightly. Toru? Toru missed hearing that name from the alpha mouth. He immediately wanted to jump into the alpha's arms, but didn't think that would be a good idea. Toru took a step towards Iwaisumi. Hagio let go of Toru's leg and clung to Mateo. Papa, who is he? Hagio looked up at his father and smiled. This is an old friend of mine. Iwa-chan, how are you? Despite his young age, Hagio can already understand several languages. Even if he mostly spoke in English, he could understand Spanish, English, and Japanese well. Well, I have a lot to do with the team and stuff. By the way, I congratulate you, but I have to go. I need to do stuff. Iwa-chan turned and started walking away. Iwa-chan, wait. Teo, you and Hagio go on. I will come after. I want to speak to him alone. Okay, good, Toru. Remember, you have nothing to lose by telling him. Toru took a few steps towards the alpha. Iwaisumi turned around. What do you want, Toru? I have to go. The team is waiting for me. Can we have dinner together tonight? I don't have time. The Omega tried not to let the rejection get to him. Maybe he really was just busy. He took a few steps towards Iwa-chan, but when he backed away, Toru stopped. And what about tomorrow? I have a lot to do, Toru. Toru tried to hold back the tears. He didn't want to start crying in front of Iwa-chan. He told himself that the alpha had a lot to do with the championship. Then tell me when you have time. I'll be able to set it up. I'm in Japan for a month. Then I'll say it clearly. I don't want to go eat with you. You broke my heart 5 years ago when you left without a word. Do you know how shitty it feels to hear from friends that you left the country? I know I was an asshole, but I didn't deserve that. I wanted to say at least goodbye. Iwa-chan was hurt when Toru left the country. Of course he deserved to say goodbye, but didn't Toru also have the right to have an alpha by his side after their night together? Please, Iwa-chan, just one dinner? I don't ask for more. Toru fought back tears. He looked pleadingly at the alpha, which apparently made the alpha relax slightly and bring something similar to a smile to his face. Fine, just one dinner. Meet me at 7 in the restaurant around the corner. Iwaisumi turned around and started walking away. Toru smiled. Maybe not all was lost after all. Maybe they could reconnect with each other. Toru really hoped that the alpha would at least accept his son. Thank you, Iwa-chan. The Omega stared after the alpha until he could no longer see him. Then he went to Mateo and Hagio. In the evening he couldn't decide what to wear. He took so many things with him to please Iwa-chan. But now he didn't know what Iwaisumi liked better. Something simple but classic or something elegant. Mateo finally helped him. He ended up wearing an ordinary shirt with a red tie and plain black trousers. Are you sure that's good enough? Yes. That's you. The other outfits wouldn't have been you. These pants emphasize your ass so nicely. Toru went to the restaurant half an hour early. He was too nervous and didn't check the clock before leaving the house. He was relieved to see that Iwaisumi was early too. Toru stood up when he saw Iwaisumi coming into the restaurant. His heart was beating wildly as Iwaisumi got closer and closer. He looked stunningly hot. He was wearing a shirt that had the top 3 buttons undone and a black blazer with black pants over it. You're early, Iwaisumi? You're one to talk shit, Ikawa. I miss that nickname. I missed you. What do you want? Idiot, why did you have to say that? Can we eat first and then go to a place where we can talk in peace? I can't. Do you hate me that much, that you don't even want to talk to me? I don't hate you. I just can't be alone with you. I already hurt you once. I don't want to do it again. Hearing these words from his best friend meant a lot to him. Please, I want to talk to you about something that is private. Fine, after eating we can go to my hotel room. Thank you, Iwaisumi. When the waitress came and he was so obviously flirting with Iwaisumi, he almost burst with jealousy. He didn't want another Omega to approach his alpha and try to seduce him. He had to pull himself together not to tear the waitress' head off. You can go now. We want to be alone. The waitress glared at Toru. Who do you think you are to send me away when I'm talking to handsome alpha? Toru was about to get up when Iwaisumi started to speak. And who do you think you are talking to my friend like that? The waitress fled intimidated. The pheromones Iwaisumi released weren't scary or intimidating to Toru, it was sexy to him. Toru thought it was extremely hot how Iwaisumi protected him. When Toru wanted to tell him that Mateo is just a friend and not Hagio's father, they were interrupted. When food was brought to them, the subject didn't come up again for the rest of the evening. When Toru was in Iwaisumi's hotel room and could smell his pheromones more clearly, he burst into tears. You have an Omega? The alpha didn't answer for a while. He just stared at the crying Omega. After a while he sat down next to the Omega. Toru threw himself into his best friend's arms. Please. Tell me you don't have an Omega? I don't want you to have another Omega. Isn't your Omega jealous when I'm here? No, my Omega is not jealous of you. The confirmation that his alpha has another Omega ripped a hole in Toru's heart. More tears ran down his cheeks. He buried his face deep in Iwaisumi's chest. He wanted to inhale as much pheromones from his alpha as he could one last time. He wanted to feel his alpha one last time. Toru smelled the strong pheromones and he suddenly felt very hot. He felt like his insides were burning. Iwaisumi suddenly jumped up and covered his nose. You're in heat? There is probably another part or maybe even 2. After that, this story is already over. From this comment I had to laugh a little, because that was exactly my plan. I love the platonic alpha part. I have an Instagram account where I will make updates and where I will upload smut scenes. Omis_it's99. Join my Discord server. I'm occasionally in the voice channel. If I am in the voice channel I will announce it on Insta. Link is in the description. I apologize for the grammatical errors. Write me a comment how you liked the story. Don't forget to follow. If someone wants a video, please let me know it. I will try to write your ideas as best as possible.